The Cincinnati Bengals did it. They found a way to keep both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, big money contracts, both top 10 at their position. Man, Joe Burrow's happy. Bengals fans probably excited to watch. Are they closer to a Super Bowl? All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers out there. Appreciate you stopping by. Subscribe and hit the thumbs up if you're on YouTube. And, of course, welcome to all the new listeners. You can subscribe everywhere you listen to your podcasts. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. Wow. What a package deal for the Bengals. And this is one, Matt, that I can't wait to hear your perspective, because you cover a team that faces the Bengals twice a year. And, what you think this means for the team and, the league and everything. And I struggle with this because I have two really separate, really strong feelings on this.
Okay.
Because on one hand, why do we do this? Why is football fun? Football is fun because you're 12 years old and you grew up in the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio, and your favorite player is Joe Burrow, and you get to watch every Sunday and watch him throw to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you go in the backyard with your buddies, and you're like, I'm Joe Burrow today. I'm Jamar Chase. Look, I'm Jamar. I made a Jamar-like catch. You can't guard me. I'm T. Higgins. That's fun. And I think it's awesome. And I love that Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, Jamar Chase all wanted to play together, and they all wanted this. And T. Higgins changed agents so he could have the same agent as Jamar Chase so they can make this a package deal and all play together. And I think that's all really good. And I love to see guys get paid, and they earned it. But the Bengals are further away from a Super Bowl today with these types of moves than they were yesterday. And they weren't particularly close yesterday based on what we saw on the field in 2024 for the Bengals. So I'm a little bit torn on this one. What's the goal? Are we trying to have fun here with this stinking sport? Isn't that what it's all about? Or is it all about just hoisting that Lombardi?
Well, there's also a business side of it. I mean, you're going to sell tickets to come see these guys too, and jerseys, and they're on the billboards and all that. I'm with you. Frankly, I condone the moves overall. You have a great thing going. Keep it going. I don't think they're insane prices for today's wide receivers. Higgins probably would even got more if he was a true free agent. The Chargers or Patriots would love to have somebody like him and can't even get him no matter how hard they try. I mean, Godwin doesn't leave Tampa. Like, these guys aren't becoming as available, the top dudes, as you'd like if you're out there shopping. And I don't think this receiver market's awesome. So I'm cool with that, but there's a couple more levels to it. And frankly, I love the way you said it to open the show and just now as well. Does this increase your Super Bowl odds? I don't think the answer is yes. I don't know. Big picture. I mean, this might be something we should talk about later in the week too. I thought free agency was very underwhelming this year, and I don't think there was many teams that did get a lot better, or many teams that were kind of just the same. They lost a little, they gained a little. I mean, I look at like Minnesota and Chicago. I'm like, they got better, but I don't know. All of a sudden, they're going to win the Super Bowl, So it wasn't like you could just build a defense totally in free agency anyway. If they let Higgins walk, would they have Milton Williams and DJ Reed and the best linebacker in the market? Probably not. You know what I mean? So I like keeping a strength of strength. But again, to pull it back even further, like where I think a mistake is made is you don't give Gesicki money then. Like I can find a move tight end in the third or fourth round anywhere. Like put all your chips in those guys. I'm cool with that. Maybe draft a guard. I don't care. I hope you're not using money on running backs, Chase Brown and those type of guys. Cool. And they're betting on the defensive coordinator was the problem, not the players, apparently. I disagree. I mean, I think their players have not been good, but I understand it. But boy, I don't look at them and say they're better or their Super Bowl odds should go be better at this point by any means.
And there are reports that they're still working toward a deal potentially for Trey Hendrickson, and they have been in contact that this doesn't take that completely off the table, which would be huge for them to still be able to add or keep a high-end player on the defensive side of the ball. But you're right; they're going to have to do things a certain way, and the other side of it is that the Bengals spend a lot of money, and so it's good to see a team want to keep their own guys. And
I wouldn't say that because they're known as this notoriously cheap team, and they are a mom and pop organization compared to others, but they spend money.
They just do it a little differently.
They do it a little differently. They don't like to trade their guys and do it on their terms and all that, but they will spend.
With the team building and with how this team is, I think one thing that you're going to see that happens is, I mean, not only do they have the highest paid receiver in the league, and now the highest paid number 2 receiver in the league too. So, that's something. And we haven't seen a lot of teams built this way. We saw the 49ers move off of one receiver when the other started to hit, even though they were kind of both under contract at the same time with Ayuk and Debo. We've seen the Dolphins and the Eagles, and they have 2 big contracts at wide receivers, but they're kind of staggered differently, not just at the same time.
The Bucs are sort of like that too.
We've never quite seen something like this where it's just like boom, boom, same time, 2 big plus a big quarterback contract at the same time. So it's fascinating. And one thing you're going to have to be good at is drafting and developing, and you're going to have to, win in the margins a little bit more. And that margin for error is a little bit smaller. And so you got to hit on some of these draft picks, and you got to build the rest of your team and build your defense. And you can't pay a lot of other positions, right? Like you mentioned, you can't start paying running backs too. You probably shouldn't start paying move tight ends and things like that. You need to be cheap where you can be cheap. Interior offensive line, up the middle positions that are traditionally not the highest paid positions. And hopefully it doesn't preclude you from being able to pay some other guys like Trey Hendrickson or maybe the next guy on the defensive side of the ball to go with these guys on offense. But it should be a lot of fun. But again, what's the goal? And so I kind of like it, but at the same time, are you closer? Probably not.
And I wouldn't say this about most teams or even most quarterbacks or most star players, but times have changed since when I was a kid, and you got to keep Joe Burrow happy too. If Burrow's that important to your team and keeping these 2 is that important to Joe, well, he's in charge of the locker room. He's the top dog, give him everything that he's, and I know there's the other argument. He should be good enough to make Yoshivas good enough. That's why we're paying Burrow. I get that, but he's also the leader of the team and is publicly lobbied for these guys. Do you really want to piss them off and take that stuff away from them? I mean, there's a human element to it,
Yeah, for sure, the human element. It's also a slippery slope. The worst evaluator in Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
Stop asking his opinion about which guys to draft, because
Aaron Rodgers is the worst ever. Give me Lazard and Randall Cobb. And
come on. So let's let the scouts scout and the players play. Like it's still, I talk about this always in the media, right? It's like broadcasters broadcast, and sometimes a lot of ex-players get immediate jobs because you have insight. You're an ex-player, right? Some of them are broadcasters, and you find that out real quick. And some of them are just great, but they were great broadcasters because they're good at it, not because necessarily because they were a player. They just have extra insight because they were a player. And so, whatever your field is, it doesn't mean just because you have a lot of money, you're a good financial advisor. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, you're the quarterback and you know a lot about football, but you haven't spent your entire life studying team building, right? You're studying defenses. You're doing something a little bit different. And I think
because you're an awesome hedge fund manager doesn't mean you should own the Panthers,
It's right. Yeah.
Right.
See how that kind of thing goes. So scouts scout, players play, coaches coach, and sometimes people are good at both, but it doesn't mean you are necessarily going to be good at the other thing because you're good at one. I tend to believe that that's probably a slippery slope that you end up not being a good football team when you start letting the players make the decisions because they think about things in a way that's not going to be helpful to your organization long term. And this might be one of those. Like, you should be able to not pay T. Higgins and replace him and make the rest of your team better. Like that's the way you should be able to do it and get better and get closer to a Super Bowl.
I wonder if Jermaine Burton had a good rookie year, would Higgins be gone already? You know what I mean? Like if there was one more dude waiting there that was cheap, would this not even been a conversation? I don't know. I don't know. And the other thing is, and this is true for a lot of teams. I mean, if one of these three gets hurt, it's a problem. You're not going to. It could be a long year, but that's true for a lot of teams.
That is true. Yeah, especially teams that are banking on this sort of the stars and scrubs build. I'm into it though. That's how I build all my fantasy teams too. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I don't have a problem with it. I just wonder how the other pieces fit and where are you a better Super Bowl contender than you were last year.
And another part of all of this, and I think we're going to continue to see poor free agent classes because teams have more cap space and more money, and they're paying their own guys, just like the Houston Texans did. Derek Stingley, now the top paid cornerback in the NFL. And these things are only going in one direction, Matt. Let's talk about, I got one more thought on the Bengals, one more thought on Stingley. What's going on there? The Vikings are making trades, which I think has some pretty important implications, even though it's a minor player on the move for both the 49ers and the Vikings, and a lot more from what's going on at quarterback for the New York Giants next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever take a peek at your bank account and you're like, well, hold on a second. Where'd all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, maybe getting coffee every single day. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you realize just how much you're spending on so many things, food delivery. Now you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of just juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term. And it's great for partners as well. It's smoother than ever, so you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And it's bracket time. We're seeing all the seeds. I love it. It's an exciting time of year, and it's a great time to get involved and have some fun because March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on all that action like never before. Because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's going to cut down the nets. And if you got your eye on an underdog this year, FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, game props. And the FanDuel app is super simple and easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com, get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel.com or download the app and get involved with March Madness because it is here. Let's talk about Derek Stingley getting a whole bunch of money, 3-year extension worth $30 million a year, $90 million. I want to talk about this as well because so Jamar Chase, $40.5 million per year extension or whatever it was. Was it? I think it was right around $40 million per year as well for Myles Garrett, right? The extension.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happens is the agent says, 4-year extension, $40 million per year. And the team goes, well, you still have one more year in your contract and we're folding this in. So really what it is it's a 5-year deal and it's $37.5 million or whatever it is. You know?
Yeah, I understand.
The other thing too is like, okay, $40 million a year, but Jamar Chase isn't making $40 million a year because it's actually, he has a new contract that's 5 years, 4 years added on, but it's smooth
now though, right? Yeah.
Void years on. So that's one of the other things that happens. But one of the big things that's happening around the NFL is that teams are paying their own, Matt. And they're paying guys top of the market money without letting them go talk to other teams to find that top of the market money, which I find really fascinating because that's usually where people get paid the most. It's like, okay, the teams are bidding against themselves essentially. And I think that was part of this with the Bengals. And we saw it with We see it all the time. We see it with all the top quarterbacks. We saw it with Myles Garrett, and teams are so afraid to lose the player that they have to give them what they want, because otherwise they might lose them, because other teams are also willing to pay, but they never really see that open market and that market value money. So what is the market? I don't know. The market is whatever a team's willing to pay. And the Houston Texans were willing to pay Derek Stingley a 3-year extension worth $30 million per year. So he gets to go over the top of the and look how fast. I mean, this is how fast it moves. Like, if you have a young star, pay him the second you can, right? Patrick Surtain last year in 2024 signed an extension that was the new high for corners around the NFL at $24 million per year. Then Jalen Ramsey got a deal quickly after that to stay at the top. He was already at the top and he wanted to be at the top. And we saw that with Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey did that. And guys that are the number one dog in the league, and someone else goes over the top of them, and they're like, "Hey team, I'm the number one guy. So you got to re-up it. You got to change this around, make it look better for me. I'm supposed to be the top guy." And then we saw JC Horn this offseason. And then now Derek Stingley goes over the top of all of them. $6 million more per year. That's a bigger percentage jump in cornerback contracts than the salary cap went up. So, like, if you're the Broncos, you're like, awesome. I got the best corner in the league. And it seems like a bargain now at $24 million.
And Houston might say the same thing a year from now.
Yeah.
With Stingley. Yeah, I mean, if it just keeps going that way. So there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, first off, I have no problem with paying this player. I mean, so right now, Surtain's probably the only corner in the league I would take ahead of him, in terms of, like, who do I want going forward? I think he's an elite player, an elite talent, was a superstar like Jamar Chase, coincidentally, when they were 18-year-old winning LSU national titles with Burrow. And, I mean, these are phenomenal athletes, etc., competitors. So that doesn't bother me. I do think, just side note, Houston's team is getting kind of the opposite of the Bengals, where I'm loving their defense. It's just loaded with dudes, and the offense looks like it's Stroud and Nico and nothing else all of a sudden. Like, are they going to win games 13-9?
The line is the thing you start to worry about.
Yeah.
And, clearly it wasn't like cost-cutting moves for the Texans, because they're willing to do some big contracts for a lot of guys. But I think it's fascinating, right? Two completely opposite ideas and directions of how to build a team. Who's going to pull it off? The Texans are betting on their quarterback fixing the offense, and the Bengals are going to try to outscore people and going to try to draft and develop on defense. Mm-hmm. And, got a new coordinator. In fact, both teams on the bad side of the ball, new coordinators, right?
Defensive-minded head coach, offensive-minded head coach. I mean, there's something to do with it, probably.
Interesting. So that's one to track, right? Let's see.
Yeah.
Texans versus Bengals build. Who's got it right? Both got big-time star quarterbacks.
So it brings me to a bigger question, and maybe something we should even talk about, like, in the dog days of June and July and whatnot, is there's so many teams. This free agency period was really eye-opening to me. And maybe part of it is because the Steelers had more money to spend than usual. But so many of these teams that had all this money to spend, yeah, they got better. They added some things, but it wasn't like bum, 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 that Eagles offseason when they signed Vince Young and they're the super team, and it didn't work out that way. But, like, it wasn't like teams are grabbing superstars left and right, because they don't leave their teams, to your point. I mean, J.C. Horn isn't leaving the Panthers. Stingley's not leaving the Texans. So I ask, big picture, would you rather have minimal cap space and a ton of picks, or would you rather have a ton of cap space and not as much draft capital? Because the reason I brought it up is I just went to OTC, and, I mean, it's kind of crazy that some of these teams, I mean, the Patriots still have over $100 million in cap space. The Cardinals have 67. Seattle has 60. The Chargers have 57. The Titans have 55 and gave Dan Moore $20 million. The Lions have 52. I mean, like, that's a lot of teams with 50+ million in cap space. And it's not a Niners situation where you got Brock Purdy sitting there that you got to get signed, and they have a good chunk too. Or the Steelers at 44 that doesn't have a quarterback even on the roster. So what do you do with the money? I mean, the Patriots have over $100 million and there's nothing to spend it on. You don't even give it to your own.
I think the answer is obvious, right? It's like you would rather have the picks and no cap space, because that means you had players that were worth paying. And
yeah, right.
And most of it feels like most of the big contracts that are divvied out not only are teams re-signing their own. But when a player moves teams, it's more likely a trade now than a big free agent signing, because a lot of those guys don't hit the free agent market. You get, Sam Darnold, who signs a mid-level quarterback contract, and Milton Williams, who was kind of like, and what's crazy about Milton Williams, like he wasn't even like the main dude on the Eagles defense, and you're looking at snap counts, and he wasn't the every down guy, which is pretty wild, even though he's a really good player. So it's a great point. And what ends up happening if you're the Patriots is, if you really want to get good, you're gonna have to start sending those draft picks around the league to find the expensive good players to bring back, right? Like you might need to draft an offensive lineman and then send your second round pick for a wide receiver somewhere, and then pay him gladly, because that's what gets you the things that you need. So you have to wield both at the same time to add quick talent to your football team, or you just play it out.
That's what I was going to say. Like the Patriots are the perfect example, and this would have been more of a pre-free agency move. You talk to the Saints, you talk to the Seahawks, you talk to the Chiefs were a cash-strapped team. We'll send you a 7th round pick for your good guy who's on a bad contract.
Yeah.
But then as Drake May gets better, you got 3 or 4 dudes that are on bad contracts. You know what I mean? Like that's not great either.
You can release them later when you need to.
You can get rid of them though. Yeah.
Talent. Yeah. So I would be shocked at all if the Patriots are able to do that and send some of their draft picks for some expensive players around the league at some point, especially when they figure out exactly what they're going to do at pick number 4.
But you can't get O-linemen. That's what they need.
You got to draft. So you got to go O-line in the draft, and you got to trade for Hendrickson or Ayuk or whoever out there that you could potentially go get at wide receiver on the defensive side of the ball. Or you just
I wonder, like the Chargers, do they regret not sending a 2nd round pick for Metcalf? You know what I mean? Like a couple of the big name. I mean, better than the receivers you could have got. I'm just looking at like receiver-starved teams, or would they make the same trade for Ayuk now? Or you know what I mean? Like, where do I get that number 2 receiver? I mean, it's not Mike Williams.
Next. A minor move in a backup running back trade from the 49ers to the Vikings. Why I think the move for both teams is not about the running back. It's all about the quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks, what's going on in New York with the Giants? Jameis Winston visiting. What's going on with the Steelers? They seem to not care about who their quarterback is.
They don't even talk about it around here anymore.
Let's talk.
We got Mason Rudolph. Everyone's fine. Whatever.
It's done. Ready. The Rudolph era. Let's go. We'll get into it next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
You filling out any brackets, Matt?
I probably will. This is so sad. Sometimes it sneaks up on me and I forget when it starts, or you know what I mean? And I don't know anything. I would rather fill one out so I pay attention.
Yeah. I've gotten so far away. One of the big things for me is I cut the cord years ago now. It's been a long time. And I just am not... I used to just be locked into like, okay, well, got to have Sports Center before, like at least once before bed. And sometimes when I was younger, I would watch, I'd be like, I've seen this story 4 times in a row. I've watched Sports Center at 3 a.m. Why am I still watching a rerun of Sports Center again?
I know Fred Thomas hit 2 home runs today. Right?
Exactly. Out of touch with those little things, like my fantasy baseball draft's coming up. It's like baseball is my sport. I'm so far away from it. The bracket comes up. I'm so far away from it. And college football.
I never get worse, bud.
I got to. I'll watch a prospect. I'm like, how come nobody's talking about Jared Ivey or whatever? Like whatever prospect comes up, I'm like, what's going on here? And so kind of late to the party on a lot of these things, and definitely the college tournament. And like, I don't fill out brackets anymore. I've like gotten rid of all my fantasy teams. I play in 1 baseball league and like 1 football league now. It's pretty wild. And
I am happier when I fill out a bracket though, because I at least pay attention. Like I have it on in the background while I'm writing articles or watching tape or whatever, and I care who wins, and I at least highlight it if I won. And
it's so fun to watch and how much they care and how intense the games are.
It's an awesome tournament.
And how little I care about a college basketball game in February.
Me too.
Late March, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. Wild how that works.
Maybe I'll make a case, make sure I fill out a bracket.
It's all about the quarterback in this league, Matt. And there's no better example than a backup running back getting traded. And why? Yeah. Because the 49ers need all the cash on hand they can get for a big guarantee that they're going to have to dole out to their quarterback in Brock Purdy. And so we're seeing a lot of that this offseason with guys that are useful players that they just are going to not pay because they want the cash to go elsewhere to their quarterback.
Yeah.
And the Minnesota Vikings have a young quarterback they don't have to pay a lot to. It's the J.J. McCarthy era in Minnesota. And they're about to run the heck out of the football to protect him. That's what I'm learning.
I agree. About sign a center, sign a guard. You're right.
Right. Yep. Run the heck out of the ball. I
mean, I don't know what it saved. Vikings are one of the teams I think are improved, clearly, as long as the quarterback isn't worse than it was a year ago, which could be the case, but that they knew that day was coming. I'm impressed with the Vikes organization. I can't imagine. Originally, I thought, why? Who's trading for a running back in this running back class? But they don't have a second-round pick. They don't have a third-round pick. I know we're at some point we're going to talk about teams more likely to move in the first round. It's so weird that all 32 teams have their first-round pick right now. I would think the Vikings, as one of the better teams, might be a trade-down team just to get some day 2 picks. And
Absolutely.
They might look at it now and be like, yeah, it's a great running back draft, but we don't have any picks. What's the difference?
Yeah, and that was part of this. It wasn't a big return for Jordan Mason, but he's carrying a backup running back to go with Aaron Jones there in Minnesota. But part of it was that there was a pick swap, and so they didn't actually lose a pick. And so that was a big part of it, and then they threw a future 6th in on it as well. So not a huge return, but I think a savvy move from the Vikings standpoint of, it's a good running back class, but, we didn't spend any of these early picks where we still might take a running back. And I think the Vikings probably could, but they don't have a lot of picks either. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if they're trying to move around and gain more draft picks as well. Because they don't have very many because of their moves in last year's draft.
Yeah, they could be that weird team. Remember last year, it was like this time of year, Houston traded out of the first round. And it's like, you were a playoff team and didn't even know where you were going to pick, but you just traded well out of the first round to Minnesota so they could go get McCarthy, apparently.
The New York Giants.
I kind of feel for them.
I feel bad. The Giants and the Steelers are interesting because they don't have quarterbacks
at all.
And it's like two buddies go to the party and they couldn't be more different. The Steelers are over there in the corner, just vibing, leaning up against the countertop, waiting for someone to come to them, it feels like. The Giants are talking to every girl in the room and keep getting shut down at every turn, and none of them are wife material. A lot of them aren't even girlfriend material. It's like, what is going on with the New York Giants, and where does this end? And do they end up having to just take Shedeur Sanders at 3 overall? Are they trying to find ways out of that path? I can't figure out what really the goal is. And, Jameis Winston is the latest story. He's visiting the New York Giants. I mean, Jameis Winston's not going to save anybody's job in New York.
No. And I respect his game. I think you can win games with him, but he's going to lose you a couple too. Like, trust me, I get asked all the time, what about Winston, the Steelers? I'm like, Tomlin would hate him. I mean, he can't live with the turnovers. He'd lose his mind. Parcells can't handle that type of guy. He has a place. I love him coming out of the bullpen, but
right. And speaking of players play and broadcasters broadcast, I'm looking forward to the post-career era of Jameis Winston.
Yeah. He's a really interesting dude. I've been rooting for him. I'm in his corner. I still think if the worlds collided in the right time, he could be that dude that puts 17 great games together, and then just doesn't have the 4 interception game or whatever. And maybe the Giants isn't a terrible spot for him, but you mentioned Sanders. I keep coming back to Sanders. There's a little bit of news. Kirk Cousins supposedly isn't moving. I'm not sure I 100% believe that cap-wise, but they're going to pick up a bonus on him. I wonder if the Browns or Giants just say, we have to take Sanders as soon as Ward goes. It might get to that point by the time the draft rolls around.
Or trade up for Ward at 1.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'd be open for business if I was the Titans. If I was Titans ownership, I can't tell. You can't go with Levis and whatever else. One of the bad Allens. That's who they have now.
You don't think that it would be, actually, this is a great place to stop because we've got a podcast coming up tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It is about this subject. We're going to start talking about our Matt Williamson's top 5 rankings for every position in the NFL draft, tons of draft stuff. But I want to talk specifically about draft trades.
Okay.
And tomorrow, let's get into that, because who are the teams that could be on the move? What would they be moving for? And what would a team be coming up for, which is the important part, because it takes 2 to tango.
Okay.
Every fan base are like, oh, let's trade down. Okay, well, who's coming up? And specifically, what are they coming up for? And I think there are some teams in the top half of the draft. And we talked about the Vikings, probably one of those teams as well, a little bit later in the first round, that this team is for sure open for business. But let's identify the players that teams might be coming up to get as well. That's coming up on tomorrow.
To tease that, if I were the Titans, now all of a sudden you're gonna blow my doors off. I'm not taking. I mean, a month ago I might have been like, just give me a second, and I'll move down 2 spots. I'm not married to any of these guys, but now it's like I want the Godfather deal.
Exactly.
You know?
And reading the room and taking advantage of a team that might have some extra motivation that is behind you as well. So that's coming up on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts. And don't forget, check out any of the other 200 podcasts here on the network, whether you want to get more into the college hoops scene and get ready to fill out your brackets, or your favorite team is covered no matter the sport here on the Locked On Podcast Network.